Hello, everyone. This is Just a Dad, and you're listening to Coffee with Dad podcast. Hello, everyone. This is Just a Dad. So we've got some exciting news to talk about today. So I just got back from CES 2026. It was my first time going, and I concentrated on robot vacuum cleaners. And there's a lot to unpack here. We're going to talk about Dreame, MOVA, Roborock, some other companies that I was kind of disappointed in. They didn't have a big showing. But first, my today's podcast is brought to you by my very own coffee, Just a Dad Simple Sip Coffee. I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee. You can find this on my website at justadadapproved.com. It is a coffee that I went down to St. Louis. We met with some roasters. It's a medium to dark roast that I think tastes really good. So again, today's podcast brought to you by my very own coffee, Just a Dad Simple Sip Coffee. You can buy it in the whole bean, the already ground cup, bag, or K-cup. So let's get started. Wow. So this was my first time at CES 2026. First time ever going to CES. First time ever going to one of these events. So there was a ton of people there, and it was a little overwhelming at first. I'll do a better job next year when I go. This year being my first year, I didn't know what to do or how to do it. I think I caught some of the major events. Now, this is something you have to plan out way in advance. You can't just all of a sudden decide, I want to go to CES. This is something that takes lots of planning. I started back in August. You have to register. You have to prove that you're kind of a YouTuber or whatever. And then they give you, it's free to go. And my wife did go with me. She was a big help because finding this stuff, these booths and all that was really, really hard. So, and then you have to get your hotel rooms because there's like 100,000 people that show up at this place, and a lot of the hotel rooms sell out. And that's where I've got to improve on. I stayed at a really nice hotel, but it was super expensive. The food was really expensive. So we've got to find how to do this a little bit cheaper. I've only been to Las Vegas. This is my second time going, so I really don't know it. But wow, has it gotten expensive out there? So next time we'll be doing it a lot smarter. So this was all planned out. Then you go through the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and right after New Year's, it's like, okay, you're packing up and going to CES. I took way too much stuff, way too much camera gear. And I didn't really know if I was going to do interviews or what. I had absolutely no idea what to expect. I did reach out to like Roborock, Dreame, MOVA. They were kind of emailing me and wanting to know if I was going to be at CES. And I said, yeah, I am. And then so they said that they would like to coordinate possibly what time I'd be at their booth. And then they would have somebody meet and greet me and kind of show me around. So that was really nice. All of them did that. Dreame, MOVA, and Roborock all did that. Now, first impressions. Dreame they were the biggest robot vacuum cleaner event at CES. Now, I went into this thinking Roborock was the world's largest robot manufacturer, and I don't know if they really are right now. The competition's getting really fierce. But so I was kind of expecting Roborock to be this huge, big event, and they were. But what Dreame pulled off and their advertising that I saw, like these big billboards, and they're really venturing into a lot of other stuff that I'm not going to be able to cover. I mean, they released a brand new car, which that's probably, I don't know if that's ever going to make it in production or whatever, but they got into all kinds of home appliances and stuff. And those were exciting. I just was not able to cover it. I really had to stay focused on just robot vacuum cleaners. It was kind of hard. There was lots of shiny things that were appealing, and I did cover a few other little things. But so Dreame had 2 booths. Now, if you've never been to CES, there's all these different locations. It's not all in one place, kind of like different halls or something. But at the Venetian Hotel, which is a super nice hotel, there's a convention center attached to it. And that's where Dreame, Roborock, MOVA, they were on the main level. And then there's kind of like a basement level to this Venetian conference center. And that's typically where those robot manufacturers have been in the past. but there's kind of there's a LVCC, the convention center, which is like the big place where all the big names are, like TCL, Bosch, like these were huge displays. And Dreame had a display there. So they had a display back at the Venetian where everybody else was, but they also had a display over at the place that I'm sure they had to pay a lot of money for that display. But they did have a lot of new products there, which it kind of made sense. How many products they were releasing, they needed to make a big splash. And they had an event. They invited me to it. I got to sit down. It was a pretty cool event. I met Digital David there. I've known him from the past. Vacuum Nerds, I met both them there. That was super nice to sit next to them. And we just kind of talked and kind of talked about what was going on and what everybody was doing. So that was really fun. I met both of them again a couple other times. So that was just a lot of fun. But so Dreame is like I got the impression that they're wanting to just take over this market. Now, their robot vacuum cleaners, they were really concentrating on this X60 Ultra. And it's got two things that are new that were kind of sleepers. Like they weren't really emphasizing them, but thankfully when I got to the booth, Lester met me there. That was over at the big place, but that place was so chaotic. They had just done their big event and there was a lot of people there. So it was very hard to when there's a lot going on, it's hard to just concentrate on what's going on. So the second day I made it over to the Dreame booth over at the Venetian, and it was a much better experience. Wasn't as many people. And I actually talked to, I think it was Michael. He's the in charge of, he was super knowledgeable. And I said, hey, can I interview you? And it's in my video where I interview him. And he's like, yeah, this is like my 6th or 7th interview today. So he was very good, very knowledgeable. He's in charge of the San Francisco store or something. Dreame's opening up these physical stores, which we've all thought were dead. But Dreame is opening up physical stores. I mean, they're in major metropolitan areas, but it is a physical store. So he told me some really interesting things. And then we saw lots of robots that were flashy, new. A lot of them aren't being released anytime soon. The stair-climbing robots and the robots with arms, other than the Roborock C70, these things are not being released for a while. They were not given any kind of information on release dates, price. They were being it was cool to see, but these were under very controlled circumstances, how they were, and here's the funny thing. So Dreame, and this goes for Dreame, Roborock. I'm going to talk about Roborock in a second. These companies had a lot of people from Dreame there. Now they had some people from America, I think, but there was a lot of people from China, I think. And the people that were controlling the robots because they would put on demonstrations, they're super organized. So the robot that climbed stairs, they had a little timer there and it said, in 30 minutes, it's going to put on another demonstration. Now, what the funny part is there was like 2, sometimes 3 of these software engineers. They were super young. They were from China. They didn't know a lot of English. I tried speaking to them. It was kind of hard, but they were the ones that were like babysitting these robots. The Dreame Cyber X that was climbing the stairs. Now that thing was really cool. And it did perform. It was on a very, very methodical thing that they had tested, I'm sure, before they came there. But these software engineers were babysitting this thing, and you could not get close to it. You couldn't, they weren't answering a whole lot of questions about it. But that CyberX that climbs stairs goes into a capsule, and then it goes up the stairs. They didn't even say, I forgot to ask, what robot is it taking upstairs? Is it the X60 or can it take any robot? But Michael did tell me one thing, that carrier does have a onboard water tank, which I was like, okay, they should be really telling people this. So when it drops the carrier off upstairs and the robot goes and cleans, it can come back and refill itself up. Now, it can't wash the mops or anything. So total different design, looked really cool again. One thing is they're worried about safety. I did sense that a lot. They're kind of nervous about these robots that climb stairs. And I get that. They don't want somebody falling. I mean, it's one thing to trip on a robot that's on the carpet as you're walking, which I do sometimes, and my wife just did the other day. But it's a whole nother deal to fall with a robot that's climbing up the stairs. So I kind of sense why they're being cautious about it. But that was the theme of this for me. Now, it was this big CES, and robot vacuum cleaners, I think, is a very small part of CES. But these manufacturers, Dreame, MOVA, and Narwal and them, they were there really highly promoting these. And the stair climbing robots from Dreame, MOVA, and Roborock got huge crowds all the time. And that was kind of fun to be a part of, especially Roborock. There was something about Roborock. They had a much bigger display for their stair climbing robot, which more people could gather around, which was smart. And they had some flash dancers there that kind of brought people there. And so they were really drawing attention to their booth, and their stair. But again, even Roborock, their stair climbing, the Rover, it had 3 software engineers. I'm just assuming, I'm pretty sure they were the developers of this product, and they were just babysitting this thing like crazy. It was kind of fun. And they even let me hold that example. Now, I thought the Rover was really cool. They even let me hold it, and this thing didn't have any type of mopping mechanism. They're saying, yeah, it's gonna be a robot that vacuums and mops, but there was nothing there for mopping. There wasn't anything there. I didn't even see a dustbin, but super cool. They had it on a very strict schedule and display and what it did, and it didn't always. I saw them helping it the most. Dreame and MOVA, I never saw them help their robot kind of through how it worked, but Roborock's was a little bit more challenging, I think. Well, no, it needed help several times I was watching. But again, very cool. I got to talk to them a little bit. But so CES 2026, Dreame was twice as big as anybody else there, but maybe for some other reasons. But stair climbing robots were the hit. And so I got to talk to some of the people kind of behind the scenes at Dreame and Roborock and MOVA. They're competing in the stair climbing. They're really holding their information close. They know this is going to be a very highly competitive area. And it was just interesting to hear them talk. They were all I got the sense that they were all watching each other's stair climbing robot. That's kind of the sense I got. And they were all kind of like, oh, ours is a little bit better. Ours is this, they weren't really saying a whole lot, but I could just kind of sense that from them. So it was neat to see those. But again, I don't know that we'll see those this year, to be honest with you. That's how new they were and how they were not talking about them at all, and how the software engineers were just babysitting them. So Dreame had the CyberX. Now, then they also have the Cyber 10. Now, robots with robotic arms. Dreame had one there, which again was super cool. Saros had their Z70 there. And if you check out my YouTube video, I asked to interview somebody that was very knowledgeable on the Z70, the one with the robotic arm that picks up stuff, because I have that at my house right now. And I asked her some really tough questions. I said, hey, I love the Saros Z70 robot as a form. Like, you did a really good job of developing this robot. It's made extremely well. The only problem was the software. Like, it has to recognize what it's going to pick up, and then it has to be, has to say this is an okay object to pick up. And that's where I was like, hey, it's not performing with the software like it should. And of course, she was kind of generic in the answer of we're developed constantly. This was a generation 1. We went out and, we got to put the stuff out there to learn from people and all that. So I get that, and I respect that. But I was just more curious. I wasn't really trying to hammer on it and say this thing's no good. I was just trying to see, hey, are we going to get some more updates? Because, man, I think they could update that software, and it would be much, much better. But again, her concern was they don't want to pick up something that's wrong. They don't want to pick up a cord that's plugged into something. Or, you can see how this could go really wrong. A robot vacuum cleaner picks up a cord that's on the ground, and the cord's connected to a lamp, and the lamp dumps over and it could start a fire or something. So I can see why they're being very, very cautious with this. And from what I've seen with the Saros Z70, it's, I've had that thing almost maybe going on a year now. I'm not really sure, but it doesn't pick up very much at all, but it's a really cool design. Now, Dreame released the Cyber 10 Ultra. Now, they weren't talking much about this and they couldn't give me a release date. I don't even think it's going to release this year even, because theirs. So when I was at the Dreame booth, they had software engineers babysitting the Cyber 10. I'm just assuming. It was under a very controlled area of what it was doing. But it was cool, and they're doing a different approach. It had different. Let me see here if I can go. So yeah, the Dreame, if you look here, the Cyber 10 Ultra, it's got these little compartments that holds tools. There was this little crevice vacuum that the arm can pick up, and there was I forget what a duster. It didn't perform very well, but it was a cool idea. It had a dust. I mean, that being able to dust in different places, I thought that was really cool. But that was a different idea of the robotic, not just being a robot vacuum cleaner with just an arm that pinches and picks stuff up, but it actually can put on different attachments. And again, they were, it was under a very controlled environment. It had like a schedule. It had like a certain routine that it just did. It wasn't doing random stuff. So they had it programmed just to do this. And again, they really weren't saying a whole lot about release date or anything. Okay, so here is, now Dreame is releasing an X60 Max Ultra. They're releasing 2 versions of this. I got a little confused. But mainly I concentrated on the Dreame X60 Max Ultra. Now, this one I think has some improvements. I haven't tested them yet, but at least I did see, and if you watch my YouTube video on the Dreame at CES, you'll see where I physically take the dual brush roller underneath is different. And they were kind of, they weren't really admitting that there was a problem, but they were saying that the orange brush here is heavier. And I said, so, because when I reviewed the L50 and the X60 or the X50 Dreame, during extreme hair vacuuming, you'd get clumping. Like there would be clumps come out of the robot and it would just be left on the floor. I kind of got that. I was asking them, is this to fix that? And I think they said yes, but sometimes, I don't necessarily know if they knew what I was asking, but maybe that's going to fix the hair clumping that I did see on the extreme hair test. I'm not really sure. But then they moved the front wheel on the robot that we typically only see in the front, right behind the sensor. They moved it to the back. Now, they said it was to increase the downward force on the mop pads. And maybe they're putting more weight back there and now they don't need the wheel on the front. But this was very interesting to me because that's going to be a completely different redesign. It had the leap wheels, and it had a bunch of, it said it can avoid obstacles a lot better, which they had a little thing there set up, and it was avoiding things. So, I mean, we all want these robots to avoid things better. So that is good. But yeah, you can see here the wheel is on the back. See that wheel right there? So they're wanting to so it is a spinning mop pad. They weren't going with the mop roller. So it was a spinning mop pad, and they're wanting those spinning mop pads to have more downward pressure. So I think they're doing that by putting some of the weight distribution in the back or something. I'm not really sure exactly, but that was kind of a sleeper that they really weren't talking about. I kind of figured out that was a new brush roller. I don't think she told me, but so this is something that you can pre-order it now for like $1,400. I'm going to wait till it comes out because it releases in February. So this was something at CES that they were displaying. They were talking about it. They kind of knew a lot about it, and it's releasing. So I will be buying this as soon as it comes out. And those are the 2 major improvements that I'm trying to I'll be testing it on. So, and again, it's got those Leap 4.5 and 4.3. Yeah. So this looks really, really interesting. Okay. So now I did move over to Mova, and their booth was very nice. It was kind of in the back, and I feel bad. I didn't explore their booth. Like they're getting into a lot of stuff, and that goes for Roborock and Dreame and all these others. They're releasing a lot of new products, and I didn't spend a lot of time at these booths because I was, again, being my first year, I just didn't know timing, how things were going to work. I had to make it to that Dreame event, which was in another hall, which there was some logistics there of going from the hall, and basically, and also I would just completely, my feet, my hip mainly, would just completely give out towards the end of the day. So it was like, I can only, I think it would open at 9 one day and 10 the other day. And we would go to about 5 o'clock, and then we were just spent. So I only went 2 days. I think that was the right amount. Third day might have been, I was just completely worn out. 1 day of flying. And then that way I had 2 full days at the CES event, and then another day flying home. So I think that was the right amount. I wish I got to be more organized next year. So, but Mova had a huge booth. It was kind of in the back, and they had a flying robot, which, talking to them, it sounded like it was just hey, let's do this because we can, and we don't know if we're ever going to release it. That's pretty much what they said. I doubt we'll ever see a flying robot vacuum cleaner. It was kind of neat to see. It was probably the most controlled test of all we saw, because it just went, it just flew. They didn't even show the robot going in and out of it, or like very little was shown on that. So not putting much into that. They did have this 70 series. Now I went to there first. And I went to their booth as soon as their booth opened, and it was a little disorganized. I get that. There was everybody flooding there, and I was there, and I was wanting to learn. They got the Mobius 60 there, and they were showing me that. I'm like, hey, I already have that at home, so I'm like, what's releasing? So they've got this 70 series coming out, and they've got the S70, which they had there. It's a roller. They had the P70. I don't know if I saw that. I'm just reading about that online. And they had the V70. Now, the V70, they had it there. And I really didn't understand what was going on with this robot, because I looked at it the first time and I'm like, oh, it looks kind of like a standard, it's got spinning mop pads. Here's the MOVA website for what they released. They call it the S70, the industry's first robot vacuum with 90 millimeter ultra. It didn't seem ultra slim to me. Maybe it was just this display they had, and I couldn't put my hands on it. There was just a lot going on there. It didn't seem ultra slim to me. I'll verify that when I get it back at the studio here. When I purchase it, it'll be a little easier to distinguish that. And then the P70 so that's probably a mid-range, 30,000 pascals of suction, 12 nanometers of dam pressure. There's the V70. Now, again, this V70 kind of caught me off guard. And they really didn't want me to hold it. I realized that after the fact. But it's got a bagless dust bin, and I have seen on Reddit and different places where people are 3D printing dustless or bagless dust bins for different various robots. They're just taking the dust bag out and putting in a 3D printed dust bin that they can empty out, which I have seen that. But this is actually a robot being manufactured from a manufacturer so no more dust bag. And it didn't look like you could put a dust bag in it. It had this plastic chamber that the dust goes into in the base station, and then you take that out, empty it out, had a filter on it, which you'll have to clean once in a while, but then you can put it right back. So I thought that was really interesting that they're doing that, because I do in my comments, people really do want bagless robot vacuum cleaners. I know Shark, theirs are all bagless. They're not high on my list as far as robots that do a great job of cleaning, but they are bagless. And I know Ecovacs has the X11 and it's a bagless. funny story. I did purchase it, but then I sent it back. I got to move on past those series. I don't see that that's going to be a major improvement from the robots that I've already reviewed. But I will be talking about Ecovacs here later. I did go to their booth. And it was kind of a shocker of how small it was. But so I like this, but then also the V70, it's got 30, again, yeah, I'm just reading here what it is, but 40,000 pascals of suction. I mean, who knows if I didn't see it having the improved dual brush roller. I didn't see it having the Dreame's dual brush roller. I didn't see it having that. So, and that'll lead me into another point here sorry about that, this was the first, I know there's been a lot of talk about, is Mova owned by Dreame? Are they the same company? Or I don't know the answer to this. I mean, all I know is what I've asked the question to the people that I've contacted there, and they say they're two different companies, but they share some manufacturing places or components. I mean, that's very obvious. It's very apparent that some of the pieces on each robot are the same. But I will tell you this, at this event, it seemed, if you were looking at this coming from the outside, you would have thought these are completely different companies because of they're really starting to, I can see they're really starting to separate. You can, maybe even more so, because that S70 or that V70 bagless one, it had a dual brush roller. I don't think it had the upgraded brush roller that Dreame's got on their X60. So if you didn't know that the previous models were so similar going into this event, you would think these are two completely different companies, just in the fact of how they're doing their stair climbing robot. Mova has a stair climbing robot. It goes into a carrier, which is super small, but it's very kind of rigid. It just kind of moves. You have to check out that video. They're doing it completely different than how Dreame's doing it. So you can see that they're really starting to separate. And also with Dreame had the Aqua 10 there and the Aqua 10 Ultra, and they also had, and Mova's got their mop rollers there, and they're starting to look like they're a lot more different than they are similar. So again, that was kind of, and then even I didn't look at the robot vacuum cleaners or the mowers. All these three companies had lawnmowers, and which I will be doing, but I'm going to go at a more methodical approach. I won't approach robot lawnmowers like I have with robot vacuum cleaners, where I just purchase them, and I gotta figure that out a little bit better and see which ones are actually kind of good, and which ones are going to be available to people more often, and kind of review those. But so that's what I'm saying is I did see a big difference between Mova and Dreame as far as their products, and then they're all, I didn't see Roborock. I don't see Roborock getting into fashion or hairstyle, but Dreame and Mova had a big area for hair dryers and all of that stuff. We kind of just quickly walk through that. So again, Mova's, yep. And they had a pool cleaner, which I completely missed. It's got a robotic arm on it. Again, the pool cleaners, I don't have a pool, so I won't be reviewing those, but they were on display there. And I think those are going to start selling like hotcakes too. So again, the Mova S series, or the 70 series, they call it S70, P70. Now they're releasing. Okay, again, back to the V70, that bagless one. I got sidetracked there. It was a unit, but they kind of had the brush or the mop rollers hot glued to the thing, and then they came off. I wasn't sure what was going on, but there's something going on the back side of it. And if you look at the video, I kind of show it a little bit where the mop rollers are. The back side of how the spinning mop pads. Yeah, the V70 has spinning mop pads. Where it moves the one to the side, it was kind of like a new mechanism. they were like, oh, we can't, I was like, and I didn't catch when the V70 is releasing. The S70 was releasing in a couple month or second quarter, I think they kept saying. And that's where I've got to be more organized. I think I got to write some of this stuff down. I did get their booklets, but I was asking kind of like, hey, what's the price? When's it going to release? And some of that information I just lost. So, but I do have it in the video, but now I can't go back and talk about it a whole bunch right now. So I do apologize for that. But that was Mova's, their big thing was the 70 series, which I will be buying as soon as it comes out, but I don't think it's coming out anytime real soon. I think Dreame is going to kind of beat them to the market, I think, with that X60 Max Ultra. And back to the Dreame booth, they had the D20 there, and they had some other robots there, and I was asking about them, and they couldn't, like they said, this one's going to be at Costco. I'm like, well, that was interesting that you brought had some weird model number. It looked like an L40S or something, but it had like I forget the numbers. There was so much going on, but they had like 3 or 4 on display there that I'm like, hey, I've never heard of this number. What is, what's the story on this? And they're like, oh, this one won't be available in the US or something. There was a couple models that I was like, oh, wow. Well, I was kind of curious, like, why did you bring them, or why can't you talk about them? But they did have the D20 there, which was surprising. And I told them that Dreame D20 is a really good vacuum-only robot. And they kind of looked at me, and I'm like, well, it doesn't mop really well. I tell people, take the mop pad off and just use it for vacuum only. So if you're ever looking for a robot vacuum cleaner that just vacuums, the Dreame D20. I have that at my house right now, which I'll talk here at the end, my next upcoming videos, and that thing's doing extremely well. Yep, and one last thing, while I was at the Mova booth, they did interview me. They had a person there, and they interviewed me. They just let me talk. They didn't really ask me any questions or anything, but I did. I sat there, I stood there and told them what I thought of. I thought that V70 with the bagless was kind of probably the neatest thing I saw there and everything. So that was and they did post that on like their Instagram and that. So I did share that on my Instagram page. So that was kind of fun. Okay, so now it was on to Roborock. I went to Roborock on 2 different days. Kind of had 2 different experiences there, both really good. The first day was kind of busy, and Katie, I talked to her, and she was very knowledgeable. We walked around, I interviewed her, and we talked about the different robots going on. Now I immediately went right to the Saros Rover. Now, this thing was super cool. It's the only one there that can vacuum the stairs as it's going up. So that was key. That's what I'm wanting for a stair climbing robot, is as it can clean a stair, then go up to the next stair, clean it. Now, this thing, again, like I talked about earlier, they had software engineers were babysitting that thing. It was on a very, but they had some cool displays going on. I miss the dancing where it dances with the Saros Z70s. I wish I could have seen that. I saw that afterwards. I'm like, oh, I completely missed that. But at least they would demonstrate it going up the stairs, and there's like a gyro built into that, because the stability of that, I'm just guessing. I don't know, but it can stand up on 2 legs, and it can tilt. It can do all these things. There must be a gyro. I'm just assuming there must be like a gyro in it or something. And it went down a ramp. Now, there was a lot of talk on the stairs. I did notice the stairs being really wide, not wide, but deep. And I know my wife said it, and then several other people are like, no one has stairs that deep, which, yeah, these were kind of deep stairs, like from front to back. And they said it would work on, I told them, I said, that doesn't look like a normal American stair. That's not that, it's not that deep. And they said it would work on a normal American stair. I don't know exactly what that measurement is, but you could tell their step was a little bit deeper than normal. I don't know if they were doing that just to try to get the robot to work better or what, but, and they said it would work on carpeted stairs also. I know the ones they had there wasn't carpet. So, but again, I don't think that Rover, the Saros stair climbing robot from Roborock, I don't think it will release this year. I don't know anything, but they couldn't say, and they were, the example that I saw was extremely, it's got a lot to go yet, I think. So now I went right to the Curve 2. Now they got the Saros 20 series coming out, which I'm going to talk about too. But this Curve 2, that's Roborock's version of a mop roller. Now, I did hear through the grapevine that this Curve 2 is going to be their first gen, and they have a premium curve. It's the Curve 2 Flow, and they have another version coming out or something. I'm not sure that has more features, but this one had a really weird... Okay, so I've got their website drawn up here. The Curve 2, I thought that side brush, the Curve 2 Flow, was going to extend into the corner for cleaning, but it doesn't. It looks really different. Now, this does have a mop roller that extends, as we can see here, 20,000 pascals of suction. Brand new multifunction dock. I was glad to see it has the dual brush roller design, or the split brush dual roller design. They weren't, interestingly enough, this one wasn't doing any cleaning. Yeah, they didn't have I thought they should have had it on display actually working. They had a display, but it wasn't actively doing anything. So, and we really couldn't hold it. So I would have thought they would have had that on display. I mean, actually doing something, but it's got a wide mop roller. Again, it's got a cover that it can put over the mop roller, which is nice. But there's that yellow side brush in the front. It doesn't extend, but it looks like it has a mechanism that does, but I don't know what's going on. I've got to release, and I regret. So I got to talk to some of these people that are over in China that are dealing with these robots all the time. I forgot to tell them that I want more information. I want more specs, because at the end of the day, I'm left with what I read online or what I read on the Amazon description or what I read on their website, which sometimes is kind of lacking. So I regret not saying, hey, I want more, give me more specs of what these robots are actually doing and what these parts are actually doing and different things, so that I can talk about it. So I'll make a note of that next time that I ask for that. But yeah, the Curve 2 Flow. Now they did say that is releasing in February. It's not on pre-order or anything right now. It is on their website, right now and stuff. So that is nice to see, but I will be buying that as soon as it comes out. Let's go on to the Saros. Okay, so they had the Saros 20. Now this thing's got these robotic feet that climb thresholds, which they did have one on display. It was under a very, laid out plan. It just kept doing it over and over, which it was doing a really good job. But it does have this adaptive chassis lift, which I'm super excited about. They showed it going over top of 3 different carpets, different varying thicknesses. But then they also showed these little robotic arms that are by the main wheels, kind of like I don't know if they've copied, but they've kind of doing the Dreame X, the Mova V50 and the X50. They're kind of doing those with those robotic feet that deploy to get these things over thresholds. And it was doing a really good job of going over thresholds. I will say that. It's got the star sight, which in my opinion is just like LiDAR. It doesn't have the spinning LiDAR, but boy, the other ones that I've tested, it worked just like it has LiDAR. Dual anti-tangle side brush, the flex arm, flex mop, brand new dock. It cleans and it cleans itself. Yeah, they had this on display. They have one, I'm pretty sure they have one with mop spinning rollers and then a flat mop. They're really, I'm pretty sure. We got dirt detection, warm water, 200 hot water dock self-cleaning. I think it still had the tray pulls out. I don't want them to ever go away from that. But yeah, they had this on display there. So I will be getting, I don't remember the release dates. It wasn't any time real quick, I'm pretty sure. But the Roborock booth was extremely well put together. It was big. You can tell they spent a lot of money doing this booth. And they had some flash dancers that came, and I get that. That's to draw attention. When they had these people dancing with really loud music, everybody was, coming to the booth looking, and that forces you to look at their products and look and see what's going on. But yeah, when that stair climbing Saros rover was working, I saw a lot. I mean, this thing was going up the stairs like every 25 minutes, and I only got to see it like 2 or 3 times. This was all day, every day for 2 days, and that thing was drawing a huge, huge crowd. So, again, the Saros 20, I went around and looked at those. They had them on display there. Again, I'm pretty sure they had a flat mop. And I should have asked more details on why are you doing the flat mop. Is that for really shiny floors that helps with, I think it doesn't, your robot doesn't leave streaks when it's mopping if you have a flat mop that vibrates. I've seen that in their description before. It was really small print. I'm like, wow, if that is the case, you should be putting that in like really bold letters. Like, hey, you get the flat mop, robot if you have shiny floors, which I think there are a lot of people that have shiny marble, shiny wood floors that do have problems with robot vacuum cleaners leaving streaks, the spinning ones. So, and I'm going to try to be setting up a test where I can test more shiny floors. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I know that I need to do it. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, Roborock was fun. Went there 2 days. They had some new F25 Ace, the wet floor dry mops. They have some cordless vacuum cleaners. Those were really small areas, and I tried to kind of review those or look at them and videotape them. It was just kind of congested. I really didn't get a chance to. But they did have a new wet floor dry mop, and I forget, they're really wanting to change that term, wet floor dry mop. I forget what they wanted to call it, a cordless floor cleaner, I think, which that whole, like the Tinecos, the Bissell, these things that they're cordless and they have a mop roller. They have they had 3 there, but they had this one that shoots out foam. So I thought that was really cool. I don't know if it's going to help it clean much better, but it was shooting out, foam out the front, like suds, the water and the solution mixture, which was really nice. So, and then they got into it. So they have lawnmowers, and I did spend a little bit. That's probably the one I spent the most time on. They had a really nice display, and it wasn't really crowded. I forgot to do the Dreame and the MOVA robot mowers, but they had a display. But again, I talked to them, and I forget, some of them weren't released in the United States. Some of them weren't releasing this year. Only one was or something. Again, I'm going to do a lot of homework before I start buying those. But I do have a yard. I have like about 2 acres and some of it's flat. I have a dog pen. And then I have some area that has some hill. So, and that's really, I'm hoping to get these, cause we have a 0-turn mower, and 0-turn mowers don't like any kind of incline. So, and it's really hard to mow that incline, the ditch, with a 0-turn, but I'm going to really put these, I'm anxious to start getting these and actually start using them. I want to use them. So, and I will be reviewing them, purchasing them with my own money, the same thing that I've always been doing. And again, I haven't talked about this a lot. My new website, justadadapproved.com. Be sure and check that out. It's going to be improving. I meet with somebody today. We're coming up with some design work on it. It's going to be all new, improved, with more information to help you make the decisions you need to make on robot vacuum cleaners. I'm really excited about that. It's going to be just quick information to get you the best robot vacuum cleaner for the best price. So let's move on here now. The Roborock, yeah, that was a fun booth. Had a lot of fun there. It just had their big red logo everywhere and all that. It was very easy to spot. Now let's go on to some surprises. Ecovacs and Yufy. And let's go to Narwhal. Let's first go to Narwhal. They had a big booth. It was right next to the Roborock booth, and there was a lot of buzz around it. And they had a lot of people there from Narwhal, and you could just tell there was a lot of buzz around this too. They had the Narwhal. So at Narwhal, they had a really nice display, which they had this where you could see the evolution of Narwhal, which I thought was neat. You sit in there and they had all the ones they told their story, which I don't think I saw that at any other booth, but again, I didn't have time to sit down and look at it a whole bunch. I wish I would have. But they did see that Just a Dad was there, and then I did meet with somebody, and you'll see I interviewed this person because I said I didn't see a whole lot of new products other than the Flow 2. And I kind of talked about my issues with the Flow, and they talked about how identifying black carpet it's very hard to do, I guess. And they're still working on it. So, but they've got this new Narwhal Flow too. And so I think during the interview, I wanted her just to explain, like, why would somebody want to upgrade to the Narwhal Flow 2 if they have the Narwhal Flow? Like, what's the major differences? It didn't seem like a whole bunch. The dock looks different. They were really stressing how the new Narwhal Flow 2 has a second sensor on the front, and it can avoid things a lot better. Oh, and the one thing they did talk about, which I think I did mention it in my early videos of the Narwhal Flow, is its cleaning pattern was kind of jerky or something, but she kept stressing smoothness and how smooth the Narwhal Flow 2 is gonna operate, and how the cleaning pattern is going to be more organized or something. And that brings me back to like the Narwhal Frio Z Ultra, which I really did like when it first came out. I still do like it. It just, there's some better ones now. But I always thought that its cleaning pattern was just a little off, but I never really understood it because maybe it is doing a better job cleaning. It just has to go back, I don't know. When you see a Roborock and a MOVA or a Dreame, you see them kind of go in nice straight lines, but the Narwhal products have always the cleaning patterns have always been kind of wonky in my opinion. And I never really knew if it was cleaning better because of it or worse. But the Narwhal Flow, they kept stressing about cleaning pattern being better, more smoother, and it can get closer to carpet with the mop. And then they were stressing, I didn't really understand this, about how if you lose an object on your floor, the robot's going to go around and, as it cleans your house, it takes pictures or they were really stressing how this thing's it can identify, I think she said unlimited. Normally they say these robots can identify 200 objects, which that makes sense. It has to be built into their onboard computer, what a earring looks like, what a watch looks like, what a shoe looks like. And there could be 30,000 different shoes. So, but I think they said it was endless or something. So I don't know if it's got a continuous connection to the cloud, that's how it's identifying objects or something. I'm not really sure, but it definitely has a camera on the front that is identifying these objects. They were stressing that a lot. And they were also stressing the threshold climbing. They had a little display there of it climbing the thresholds, which it did do a good job of with the thresholds and that. So, and they did have a new one with the water lines you can hook up to without the water tanks. But again, and a bigger battery. I think she said that, American homes typically are bigger, so they realized they needed a bigger battery, which I've never considered that. I have seen this comment, like I need to test battery life, and I really haven't. Because these things are typically cleaning when I'm not around, or I don't really care when they're cleaning. And when they don't clean at all, they go back and recharge, and then they finish it. Typically, I have a 1,500 square foot house. Yeah, 1,500 square foot house. And yeah, typically most of them do have to recharge, but they just do it themselves, and then they go back and clean again. So I've never really considered it not having a super big battery to be, I never wanted it to clean all in one pass. So, yep, that was the Narwhal. They had some the new wet dry floor mops. I don't think I looked at those, and different things. That was kind of their booth. And then let's go on to Ecovacs. Okay, so what the surprise was, as at CES, I know these booths are really expensive, but Ecovacs and Tineco, I guess, are the same company. They had this, it wasn't a booth. It was like a hotel room, or it was kind of off the main area, a little hard to find, and kind of tucked away into like a little, I don't know what you call these, it was just a really small area away from the big area. And it was just kind of like their own thing. And I didn't think that what they had displayed was, it wasn't displayed very good, because they had a white light. They had them all sitting on white lights. And when you're filming, you can't see the details. Like having white light behind something just completely floods out your camera. So it was really hard to film the products and stuff. So, and again, the booth was small. There wasn't a lot of people there. This was a super small area. They only had 3 robots there, I think. One wasn't available. They had a miniature one there, which wasn't available in the United States, but I know this is an international event, so I do get that. They had one robot, an Ecovacs, they call it the GOAT, I think, it's a lawnmower. And so there was some people gathered around that, but there wasn't much going on with the robot vacuum cleaners. I did make it there the second day. There might've been more the first day, but they had the X12. I think is that new. I just don't do a whole lot of Ecovacs. I think the X12 new. They had the X11 there. The X12 is new. It's bagless. I couldn't see a whole. I asked this lady for an interview. She knew some things about it. I wish she would have known a little bit more about it. But I could tell there was one thing that she was wanting to emphasize was there's some kind of air they're blowing in the chamber with the brush roller. She was trying to explain this, and I was like, oh, this is something new. I haven't heard of this. So I was kind of trying to get some more information, but I really couldn't see it. I don't remember if I could touch the robots or not. Sometimes these robots, they don't let you, that's just display only, but I think I was trying to see that and I really couldn't see it. So that was a technology that was on the X12. She said it was on the T90 also. And I think they had the T80 there. Again, I got, it was just such a small, I was so surprised how small it was. And it was connected to the Tineco, which I thought they had some exciting news, which I'll talk about at the end here, the Tineco wet dry floor mops. But, the Ecovacs now, they charge while they're cleaning. So when it goes back to wash the mop roller, it's going to, it's going to charge the battery, and also their mop roller was wider. So they're making their mop rollers wider. I know they did have kind of some smaller mop rollers, but I could tell they were emphasizing that, and it could do thresholds. So that's really all I got to say on the Ecovacs. It wasn't that big of a booth. I was really shocked how small of a presence they had. But what was even more shocking was Yufy. So Yufy, I was not able to visit the Yufy booth. They didn't have a booth. They had a hotel room, which I know I don't really understand CES, but I know there's hundreds of companies that just do a hotel room, an actual room that they just set their products up in. That it was at the Venetian, which is where the main event is. So, and it is part of CES. It's in their brochures. It's in their, it's in their program and all that. But I did have a contact with Yufy before CES. So I want to see their products. But they had an event before CES started, which I flew in that Monday, and then had an event, PepCom, which I'd never heard of. And they invited me to that. Well, apparently you had to pre-register with PepCom. So we went there. We weren't able to get in, which was very frustrating because it was a cab ride over, cab ride back, and just kind of a waste of time not to be able to get in. And Yufy was going to be there. From what I heard from people that did go, I didn't miss much, but it would have been nice to be there. But we went to their hotel room, which I was told to go to their hotel room at 7:00 that first night. And they answered and they're like, no, we're not going to be open until the next day, so it was kind of like a lot of running around for nothing. And then I guess I just didn't make it back to the hotel room because Yufy and Anchor, I think it was at the same hotel room. Again, it was kind of all unclear to me. And so I wasn't going to waste any more time of trying to figure that out. But they did release the new S2. So it's $1,600. Wow. I did purchase it off of Amazon. It doesn't ship till the end of January, which I kind of want to cancel the order because it's so darn expensive, but I will be getting it. Again, I don't know anything about it. I mean, it looks form factor and all of that. I just would have loved to have seen it there or talk about it or something, but I was a little disappointed why Yufy didn't have a display of some sort. I guess I thought they were kind of a bigger company. I know it's pretty expensive probably to do these, but they do kind of, it seems like they're competing with the Roborocks, the Narwhals and all of them, but I was really expecting them to have at least a small booth, which was just kind of shocking. And then I maybe should have done a little bit more effort to do that. Now let's go on to Tineco. Yeah, Tineco released again, Tineco had a really small, and I asked, my wife made me ask because she thinks I'm pronouncing it wrong, Tineco or Tineco. I forget what I think the guy said it's okay if I called it Tineco. So I think I won that argument. But they had a really nice display. There wasn't a lot of people there. It was just the same size as the Ecovacs. It was in the same hotel room. It was just split down the middle. But they had this Scientist, which was really cool. These things are getting really expensive. They're flagship models, but it has a little gate that goes down in the front. But the one that caught my eye was the i7 Fold, which, yeah. And again, I think all things are going to be released. At least they are going to be released this year. These things didn't look like prototypes. The i7 Fold looked really cool because the handle actually folds. It's lightweight. So I'm pretty excited about that. They had an S9 Master. I had a little gate that went down in the front or something. I don't remember a whole lot about that. But the one that caught my eye was the i7 Fold. That looks like, again, that's going to be something new for these wet dry floor mops. Okay, so now let's talk about Robotin. And I got to be careful. I like to mispronounce. I don't like to mispronounce words, but my brain sometimes sees words, and I call it Robotin. It's not Robotin. Robotin. Now, I've seen a lot about this robot. I scroll TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube and different things, and I'll see this, and it's always caught my eye. But it is a Kickstarter, and I'm not going to buy Kickstarter products. I'm not going to say never, but I typically don't, just because I have bought some in the past, and the products take forever if they ever are released. And so, but this one really caught my eye, and I researched. They were going to be at CES, and if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a robot vacuum cleaner that can shampoo carpet. So I've never seen this before or heard of a robot that can actually shampoo carpet. So I was kind of excited to see this. I was excited they were there, but they were downstairs. And again, my first time going, it was hard to find, but my wife loves scavenger hunts. So she was all on it. Like she found this booth, which I was like, I don't think we're going to find it. But anyway, we had to go down in the basement. Now, if you've never been to CES, the main floor at the Venetian is kind of like, it's kind of like your well-established businesses. The basement, and I'm not categorizing this, but it was just really different down there in the basement. It was like all of your like Kickstarters, your companies that maybe were just really trying to like release their first product or something. It was a lot of buzz. There was a lot of people. It was small. It was cramped. The booths were much smaller. They were the size of, I don't know. They were super small, and there was a bunch of them. It was kind of fun to be down there. There was a lot to look at. And it was down in the basement, and there wasn't any Wi-Fi and different things. So it was just kind of fun to be a part. I think they even had like a Kickstarter, like where they go up on a stage or something. So I wish I could have spent more time down there, but we did find Robotin, and I do have a little video on them. They were super excited for me. They did know me. Now, the co-founder was there, super nice guy, just like with the Matic. I met that guy on Zoom, and he was just a super charismatic, nice guy, easy to talk to. That was the same case. This booth was super excited to see me. I was super excited to find them. There wasn't anybody there at the booth right at that time, so I got to really spend some time with them and interview the co-founder. So look, I have that video on YouTube where I interview the co-founder, and now it wasn't they weren't able to show me it shampooing carpet. I mean, I was hoping for that, but I didn't know what to expect when I got there. They did show me the unit, talk about it. They did say that their Wi-Fi was not the best or something down there. I didn't really understand, which I would understand. I mean, I would understand that because we were in the basement and I wasn't getting a signal or anything. But the unit they did show me, it looked like it had been working earlier. Like it had been, like there was some carpet. They had some piece of carpet there, and it was kind of wet. and the roller underneath the shampooer was kind of wet and all that. Now, I wish I would have deep dived a little bit more. It was kind of, I just got caught up in the excitement of being there, and it was kind of fun. Now apparently it is releasing this year. I think in the middle of the year or in a couple months. I forget. $1,500. I thought he said. I'm not don't quote me on that. Which I thought that's not a bad price point, to be honest with you, because as we see some of these robots that just vacuum and mop, when their flagships come out, they're $1,600. So I thought that's a really good price point. Now, I will be buying this when it is available. And I'll be putting it again, I think it's going to be a Gen 1, but I'm just excited for it. That's just something new to the test. So it was really fun. It does have a modular system where it does have a big part that you take off and put on that it can do just traditional robot vacuum. Now, everything about this was big. The robot itself is big. The base station's big. I did like how you can store the other modular in the base station, which that was kind of nice. So it looks form factor, but it didn't work when I was there. So again, I do look forward to that one. Okay. So this High Zero now. So I was literally just walking around. I think I had some time to kill between the MOVA event and the Roborock event or something. I was just walking around, and this was on the main floor. This is called High Zero. Now, this, I stopped in because it looked like just another wet, dry floor mop. They had a nice display. There wasn't a lot of people around it. And I was like, well, is it okay? I stopped and talked to the guy. The guy was super nice demonstrating it. And I thought, well, it looks just like another wet, dry floor mop. I've seen these, there's a lot of companies making these now. But what got me is when he showed me the roller. And I knew right away when he showed me the roller, it's a completely different roller. Now, the reason I stopped there is they had 2 robot vacuums that were working. And the guy stressed, these are just mopping robots, no vacuum only. And I'm like, that's fine. But I'm like, well, when are they going to be available? No, these are just I forget how the conversation went, but it wasn't like they were going to be available anytime soon, if I remember. And so I'm like, well, I wish, tell me more about it. But they really weren't really weren't wanting to talk to me a whole lot about the robot vacuum cleaners, which they were really set up because they are currently selling these High Zero wet dry floor mops. Now, and so I get that. They had the display there. The robots were kind of off in the corner and you couldn't really touch them. But what really caught my eye was, and I'm not seeing it on their website, they really need to stress this, is the mop roller is a different material. And I told him, I said, that needs to be your number one reason to tell people to buy this. It's not a traditional roller with cotton. It's some kind of plastic sponge squeegee or something. But what it is it doesn't leave streaks on. Now I wasn't able to test this. They had some like shiny black floor there and it didn't leave streaks on the black floor. Again, they're not talking about the mop. You really can't see it, but there's the one, it's called a high density polymer rather than common fabric, making it gentle and durable enough to protect your floors from scratches. I didn't know scratches were, it's just, I may be jumping to a conclusion here. I may have spoke these words and he just agreed to them. I forget. But I was like, is this going to prevent streaking on really dark floors or like wood floors that you can get some streaking? And he said yes. And it did look like it was working when he used it. And then I asked, does it dry the mop roller? And he said it doesn't need to. And I said, well, then what about odor? And he said it doesn't odor. I'm like, well, those are some pretty big statements to make. I'll have to verify those myself. But then I said, does the robot sitting over there have the roller? And he said yes. So I was like, now this really caught my eye. But again, we didn't talk a lot about the robot vacuum cleaners, which I regret. We went right to the handheld. They have a handheld version of this, which was kind of cool. Don't know that I have a need for it yet or anything, but it was kind of cool. So this, I will be ordering these. They're kind of expensive. They're kind of a higher end one, High Zero. Look for them. They are doing something different, and this might be something to watch out for. Again, it completely, I just stumbled upon it. And with that being said, I didn't make it, like, I just got exhausted. The last day I was going to go to Eureka. They had a nice booth there. I was just exhausted, and I just want to go sit in the hotel room, go to supper, and then go to bed. I did make it to Eureka. I reviewed their robots in the past. I don't know that they're innovating to the point where I've got to go see them to where they may have had some products there that we're keeping up with. I regret not going there. I did see some other robot vacuum cleaners. They were, I could tell, LaFont. I looked at them just real quick. I was like, these aren't, what I'm considering like the standard now. So with that being said, I have ordered the Mova P10 Pro Gen 2. It comes in a couple days, so I'm super excited about that. The price, I forget what I paid for it. I don't remember it being super expensive. I got the L40 Gen 2 out there right now. I got to get started on it. I got to unbox it. I'm pretty excited about that. Maybe that's going to be the competitor to that kind of makes sense now. And interestingly enough, they didn't have either one of those there at the CES. And I even asked them about them, and I don't know if that they asked, I don't know. They didn't act like they knew anything about them or something. Maybe they just didn't want to talk about them or something. But they didn't have them there. So again, I do have those. Yeah, that's pretty much wrapping it up for now. Let me know what you think of this podcast. This is just CES, all the robot vacuum cleaners. Again, I'm going to release separate videos on all these different companies that I visited their booth. If there's more or less information you'd like to see on these videos for next year, I will be going next year. I don't know if I'll be going to Berlin for the IFA conference, which is pretty much like CES. That's a pretty long way to go for but we'll see. It might be a nice vacation. I'm not sure, but just not sure it's worth going all the way over there for. If there are going to be a bunch of new releases, I'm not really sure. But so I will be getting these. I will still continue to purchase these robot vacuum cleaners with my own money. I recently just released a video, the Matic. I had to apologize for that one. Again, I just got caught up in the owner reached out to the co-founder reached out to me. We had a Zoom call. He's just a super nice guy. I just kind of fell in love with the idea, the idea behind his company. He's really wanted to help people. And he's really wanting to make a really good robot. I just fell in love with that idea and everything. And I just could not give an unbiased opinion on the robot. So really, again, the Matic, I don't know where I stand on it. It's just too biased by getting the product for free. He didn't pay me for the video, but he did send me the robot, which is over $1,000, and having that kind of relationship where I was just super excited for him and what he's doing and all of that. I kind of got caught up into that and not bringing that unbiased of, hey, is this something you should buy? Which I need to do a better job of that. And I'll start by not letting them send me the robots for free. And I'll also start with that, trying to be more subjective to it. Like, what are these features that would be good for, and actually calling some things out. So again, check out my website, justadadapproved.com. I'm so excited. I won't be making as many videos here in the next month or so. I've got to spend a lot of time on developing that. It's going to look completely different. It's going to have written reviews, stuff that's going to be Google searchable for you when you're looking for robot vacuum cleaners, and more in helping the people to understand robot vacuum cleaners they're here and they're here to help us. That's my biggest thing is you can spend $400 now, $500 now, and actually gain 3 or 4 hours a week. That's huge. That was not the case a couple years ago. I mean, you'd spend maybe $700 and maybe gain a half hour, but there's this big hassle factor. And that's really what my robot vacuum cleaner reviews are about, hassle factor. I tell people if I don't feel like I want to throw it out the window, because the minute something starts to become a hassle, you just don't want to deal with it, and I try to bring the point of view, is this just a one-off? Is it just a bad robot? No, sometimes these things are just filled with hassle. And that is something that I don't want. I don't care how good it's going to clean. If I can't interact with it, if interacting with it's a hassle, I'm not going to do it, no matter how good it cleans. So again, look for more videos coming up soon. New website with lots of information. Leave me comments of stuff you want to see on my website. My head is full of information on robot vacuum cleaners, and I want to share as much with you as I can. So I'm going to be, in the next 6 months, and it's going to be a continuous thing, I'm going to be downloading my brain onto the website. It's going to be common fixes, common problems. I know I've been seeing some issues with water tanks, like on the base station, not sucking up water. I do have a simple fix that might fix it. I don't have the fix for everybody, but I want to do a simple video on that. And I want to do all the maintenance videos on my website with links to the products, the filters that are going to work and all of that. Because I have the YouTube videos, and it's just kind of converting that information onto the website, because not everybody wants to watch a 20-minute video on how to do it, but maybe they know how to do it, and they're like, well, just what's the dust bag for this model and different things. So lots more to come. But again, I will be purchasing these robots with my own money, giving you my honest review on them. This is going to be the theme of the website. It's just home of the honest review. I want to do as good a job as I can for you. I want to spend the money so you're not wasting your money on junk, because there is still some junk out there. So again, thanks to everybody for this. And I'm going to sign off here with my little commercial, and thank you. So the best way to find the products that I approve of is my very own website, justadadapproved.com. Here I'm on my website right now. You can scroll down. It's going to show you the robots that I approve of, and if they're on sale. It has a link to where you can purchase it on Amazon. I am an affiliate with Amazon. If you click on that link, the product's not going to cost you anymore, but I do earn a small commission from the sale. And again, if you scroll down a little bit further, you can see my top picks. There's also a section at the top where, if you don't want to miss a deal, whenever a robot vacuum cleaner or another product that I highly recommend goes on a huge discount, I do send out an email. So sign up from your email list. I don't send out a whole bunch of emails just when products that I highly approve of go on sale. And up here, there's also a section, gifts for dads, robot vacuum cleaners, robot care and upgrade. These are the parts that I upgrade my robots with, and also the parts that I use to clean my robots. I'm also going to be expanding this into the filters. Like if you have a very common robot, I'm going to have like dust bags and different things where you can purchase. Again, these are also going to be links to Amazon. If you click on them, it's going to take you right to the Amazon website, where the product's not going to cost you anymore, but I do earn a small commission from the sale. And again, this is my very own website. I will be improving this quite a bit, and I'll have common questions and answers to common problems with robots. I've got wet, dry floor mops, coffee makers, and you can purchase my very own coffee. Just a Dad Simple Sip Coffee. Takes you to this website where you scroll down. It's available in the K-Cup form, whole bean, or already ground.